All right, so let's start. So we will be doing something called as deployment of machine learning models. Okay, so before starting it, that why we are doing deployment or why this is required, let's try to see the content that we will cover in this particular session. Please ignore this PPT because this PPT was made on Linux. Okay, and I'm using Mac right now, so the integrity problem is there. But anyways, the first thing that we will see is that why we need to deploy ML models. Okay, what is the use case of deploying the machine learning models? Then, after understanding that why we require to deploy the model, the next thing that we will do is we will see what are the different platforms that we have to deploy the model. So premises versus IaaS, that stands for infrastructure as a service, versus PaaS, that is platform as a service, and SaaS, that is software as a service. So we will see what is the difference between the all three in a while. Okay. Then we will discuss a basic of what a life cycle of ML in production means. Okay. So once we have the clarity that why we are doing the deployment, and then we will use something called as Flask. So Flask is nothing but it is a Python framework which helps you to make a website. Okay, a web page. Okay, that was a Flask kick. So the only prerequisite, guys, here is that you should know about machine learning algorithms. And the second one is you should know about Python. That's it. Nothing else. This Flask, what I'm talking about right now, I will be teaching you this from basics, from zero. Okay, so don't worry about Flask. So in the Flask, what we require is that you should know about HTML page, which I will teach you from scratch. You should know about Flask, which I will teach you from the scratch. Okay. So the first thing is we will try to build a small Hello World app with Flask. Then we will try to create forms with Flask. So forms is nothing but when you input something in the website, how the data goes from a website to a backend, that we will see here. Then we will try to run the ML model in Flask, and we will try to deploy the model on the three platforms, that is GCP, Heroku, and AWS. Okay. So now we have GCP, Heroku, and AWS. Now I will be not deploying on GCP. Okay. And the reason is that to deploy on GCP, you require a credit card. And most of us will not have a credit card here. So what I have done is, so that's why I have included AWS also. So in AWS, you can use debit card also. So why I am taking AWS? So that we all can work on AWS instead of GCP together. But if you have learned about AWS, GCP is also on the same lines. There is no difference, not a single difference. Okay. So that's why we will work on Heroku and AWS. But to reach here, first we have to understand what is the meaning of deployment. What is the meaning of deployment? So can anyone tell me what is the meaning of deployment, please? What do you understand when you hear the word deployment? Azure, the problem is now for Azure also, Mayank, you require a credit card. Okay, so that's the reason. So we have a constraint this. That's why we'll be using only these two things for a time being. Okay. Now, so what does it mean to deploy a machine learning model? So what we have done till now is you have a Jupyter notebook with you. Okay, you took a particular data, correct? And after taking that data, what you did is you train the data, right? And after training the data, what you guys do is you do a prediction. But that prediction, what you are doing, it is for some use case, right? For example, let's say housing price prediction. Now that Jupyter notebook, when someone wants to use it, you have to send that file to a user to use it, right? Yes or no, everyone? Now let's say your mom or your dad has to predict the future price of the house by giving some details. Now you will tell them, you will give the files. First of all, they will not understand what that file is all about. When they will see the code, they will not understand any piece of that thing in the code. So do you think that is a better way of giving the models or files to for a prediction? So what we have to do is, so we have to make a website. Okay, we have to make a website so that what the end user will do is they will only try to input the data. They will only try to input the data. What is happening in the backend, they don't know about it. And they should not know about it because their main aim is to just get the future house prediction. They are not interested at all that what is happening behind the scenes, right? So that's what you call as deployment. Okay, making your model and delivering it for a production so that everyone in this world can use it efficiently with just one click. That is what we mean by deployment. So before starting the deployment, let me open my OneNote. Okay, I will repeat again. I think, oh, I am audible. Okay. So basically what I was saying was that deployment is nothing but you put your model on the production. Now, what is the meaning of production? So basically, making your model available to other systems on the web so that, okay, so that they can give the input or they can input the data and they can receive the prediction. But right now, what we are doing is we have a Jupyter notebook with us and we write a program. Correct? We write a program. So once we write the program, that is pre-processing and training and everything, what we do is we do model.predict. We give some data here and we get some predicted values here. But the point is, if you try to give the Jupyter notebook to anyone else in the world, will understand anything? If they are from a non-coding background or if they are from other background, they will understand anything? Yes or no? No, right? So so what you will do here is you will try to make a website. You try to make a web application in such a way that you only tell the user that you put the inputs and click on the submit button and you will get the output. So in that scenario, they don't have to know anything about what is going behind the backend, right? That is what you mean by deployment. So clear now, Atira? What deployment means? Making your particular machine learning model available for the end users. That is what simply deployment means. Now, what is the life cycle of a ML model? Can anyone tell me the different steps that we have in a machine learning model? So I will tell you the starting point. We collect the data. That means collecting of data or data collection. Then what is the next step that we do after collecting the data? Yes, you do something called as pre-processing. Then we something to EDA. That what exactly Adriya said, that exploratory data analysis. Then Then what we do? No, before that also we have some few steps, right? So feature selection. We have to select some important features also, right? So suppose let's say if you have 15 columns, then out of that 15 columns, which one are important, you have to consider that. Then you try to do a train split. After doing the train split, then you try to train the model. Okay, once you try to train the model, then you try to optimize the model by giving different ways of doing it. So changing the hyperparameter or lot of ways of optimizing the model, and then you do the prediction of that. So these are the all things that you have done till now. Everyone agrees on that? Okay, so you have a CSV file, you do a pre-processing, you try to train a model, then you try to test it. That is model.predict, and you try to test the model. Okay, now this is only the part one, guys. Whatever you have done till here, this is part one. Now, what happens after prediction? Let's say you are satisfied with the accuracy. Then what happens is, then comes the deployment part. Then after this, you try to save the model. You try to save the model. So this is altogether a new concept for you guys. Okay, so saving the model, which I will be teaching you from basics, that what you mean by saving the model. Okay, and then after saving the model, we will try to convert this into a Flask app. Now, guys, this is the Flask. Why we are using Flask is because we know about Python, but there are a number of ways of doing it. Okay, you can use any other web applications also in which you are familiar with, but I will be going with Flask because Flask is full Pythonic. And right now, everyone here is a Python people, so I will not confuse you guys with other things. So Flask, and then we will deploy on AWS/Oracle. So this green line, what you can see, it is the step for deployment, which you guys have no idea about till now. But at the end of the course, you will have this idea about the green line also. So clear, Atira? So where deployment comes into cycle now? This is how it comes into cycle. Atira, feature selection is nothing but, let's say you have 12 features. So let's say you have name, age, and let's say some medical, let's say diabetic value and stuff like that. Now in this, the name is not an important feature, right? Because every person will have a unique name. So this unique name is giving any output to the target variable. So we try to remove this feature, right? So that is called as feature selection. So we are selecting the important features. That is called as feature selection. Removing the unwanted features and only selecting the important features is called as feature selection. Did you get it now? All right. Now, before jumping into this part, let's try to understand something about the deployment. Okay, what are the different methods that we have? What are the different servers that we have? Let's try to extend that knowledge first. Okay, so I will minimize this. Let's go to the PPT. So this is basically a life cycle of a machine learning model. You have a data, you data collect it, you train it, debug it, and you deploy and test it. So the first three shells that you can see, planning and project setup, data collection and labeling, training and debugging, this you do know. Last one, the green box, that is the part that we're gonna learn today. Okay. Now, these are the different services that we have. So first is on premises. So in what you do in on premises is, let's say you are a startup. Okay, let's say you have a startup and we have a team of 8 members. Okay, we try to make a machine learning model and we want to deploy it. Now we have multiple options, right? Deployment means either you can use the service or you can use your own office space and build the service. Correct? So that is what you mean by on premises. So what you decide is, no, I will not take help of anyone. All the data, everything I will keep with myself. So what you do is you set up everything in that office space. That is your application, your computer, your data, your middleware, your operating system. So application is nothing but your application, that is the app. Data is nothing but database or whatever you require to give to the app to run. Runtime is for how many time that particular app will run. Okay, so the application, if you want it to run 24/7, 24/7. If you want it to run for 10 hours, then you have to give the runtime as 10 hours. Okay, middleware. Middleware is nothing but when your front end talks with the back end, the between part is called as a middleware. So I will not go into depth about this because this is of networking topic, okay, which is not part of your thing right now. Then OS. Then of course, right, if you have a laptop, if you have a Mac, if you have decided that, okay, you have a laptop or a desktop, so you have to give the OS also, right? Otherwise, how it will work? So the OS also you have to decide. Then virtualization, servers, storage, networking, everything, each and everything you guys have to do. So when everything we have to do, the good point is that everything is with us. But what is the bad point here, guys? Can you spot it out? What is the problem that we will face in the future in on-premises? Small summary. You have everything in your room and you have set up everything in your room. When I say set up, this green thing, what you can see, everything is set up by you individually. So what is a bad point here? What is a disadvantage here? Okay, so do you guys know what virtualization is or what a networking is? Do you guys know about it? Yes or no? Two answers, yes or no. So the point here is you don't know about networking, right? So obviously you will hire someone for networking. So if anything goes wrong with the networking, they can handle that. Yes or no? In a company, just think as a company, guys. Think as a company. So you will not learn each and everything, right? You have an application. So of course, for networking, you will hire a people. For storage, you will hire a people. For maintaining the servers, you will hire the people. Correct? So when you hire the people, what increases? The cost increases. Correct? This is the first one. Then when you have so much things, so you have to maintain these everything. For that maintenance also cost increases, and that's the exact problem with the on-premises. That when you decide that, okay, you will put something for your own self, so when you hear for the first time, it looks okay, it's good. But when you, over a period of time, you start facing the issue of maintenance a lot. Because if suppose your application gets a lot and lot of traffic, then you have to increase the servers. To increase the servers, you have to put more man labor. To put the more man labor, more maintenance. Okay, so the cost increases very, very heavily. Okay, and that is a problem with on premises. Everyone is clear about it? Okay, so that's why the startups and everything, no, they never set up the servers. They always buy the servers from AWS, GCP, or any other platforms because of this reason only. Because the maintenance of the server and costing of the server is very, very high. If you try to do on your own, you will be not able to do it unless and until you are a unicorn company. Okay. So what nowadays company do is they move to something called as IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service. For example, GCP. So I will go to GCP and I will tell them that, okay, I want to use your servers. So what GCP will do is they will, so again, the same thing, we have applications, we have data, we have runtime, middleware and OS. So what GCP will do is that they will tell, okay, you deploy your applications, but this green part is what you will manage. That is application, data, runtime, middleware, and OS. So you have a control over this, but all the other things, servers, storage, networking, virtualization, this everything will be taken care by the GCP. So the good part here is that you don't have to put or you don't have to look at this particular step. If anything happens here, it is a responsible of GCP is responsible for it. You are not responsible for it. Okay. So you have to only take care of these particular part. That's it. That is what you mean by infrastructure as a service. So infrastructure will be given to you. You just use the service. That's it. So that is the difference between on-premises and IaaS. All the 7 participants is clear till here, the difference between the two. Runtime is nothing but for how much time you want to run the application. For example, the runtime of Amazon website is 24/7. Correct? The runtime of ICTC app is not 24/7 because from 12 to 12:10, they always switch off the website for maintenance. So that is what you mean by runtime, Atira. Okay. So guys, difference between the two is clear to you or not? Guys, come on, you have to respond. The answer can be either yes or no. If no, I will repeat it 100 times. There is no problem. Atira, don't try to go in that depth, okay? Because you don't know about these parts are the backend thing that we have. So in short, what I will tell you is you have a backend, you have a front end, you talk between the two, right? So that is the middleware part. So this is not part of your job. This is a part of networking team. So don't focus on this. Just try to understand what are the different parts that we have. The next thing that we have is platform as a service. And the example of this platform as a service is Horiku. Now, what Horiku will do is they will only give you the control for application and the data. But rest everything will be controlled by Horiku, even the OS also. So you don't have any option to select the OS. Everything, each and everything will be selected by Horiku itself. So in a platform as a service, you only have a control over your application, that is a Python file, and the data. That's it. Rest everything will be controlled by the Horiku people. This is what I mean by platform as a service. So the control level in on-premises, you have a control on everything. On IaaS, you have a control over these 5 things. Now in platform as a service, you have a control over these 2 things. Okay. Thus everything will be managed by the the company from which you are buying the services from, AWS, GCP, whatever you want to use. Then the last part that we have is software as a service. Okay, for example, Zoom now. So when you are using Zoom, do you guys have to worry about the application, the data, the server, the storage, the networking? Are you taking care of any of that when you use Zoom as a user? No, right? So for you, it is a software as a service. Okay, so a service that is given to you in which you don't have a control of anything. You just use that as a software. Okay, so all the softwares that you see for us, for the end users, it is software as a service. Like Google Drive, it is software as a service. Dropbox, software as a service. Google Meet, software as a service. Okay, where you don't have any control, you just use that software for your use. That is what we mean by software as a service. So these are the different platforms that we have. Any questions? Please go ahead. Okay, so I think there are no doubts till now. So I will just move to the next slide. So these are the different examples that we have for different platforms. For example, IEAS, that is infrastructure as a service. You have AWS, you have Microsoft Azure, you have Google Cloud Engines. Then for PaaS, that is platform as a service, you have Horiku, Google App Engine. And for SaaS, all the things that you use, right? So Cisco WebEx, Dropbox, GoToMeeting. So this everything comes into SaaS. So these are the different examples that we have. Okay. So what machine learning in production means? So you have a historical data. You try to train that particular model. Okay. Now you know this creation wala part. Okay, this creation wala part you know, which is the orange line. Now what you guys have to know is about the production wala part. That is the blue line. So what you do is you deploy the model, and on the live data, you try to predict the model so that the user can use that particular thing. Okay, that is what we mean by ML in production. So this orange part, creation, you know, we will now try to learn how to do a production level things. Now, the first important thing is we have to see something called as saving the model. So let's try to understand this concept first. Okay, what a saving of the model means. So what we do in the machine learning model, we try to do the training, and then after we try to do the prediction. Let's say this whole code, we use in the production. Okay, training takes 5 minutes. So have you noticed? So suppose, let's say if you try to train the model and if you try to predict the model, the next day when you come, you have to execute everything from the starting again. Have you noticed that in the Jupyter notebook to do the prediction of some data? So in the Jupyter notebook, you have written each and everything, right? When you close that notebook and when you open that notebook, you have to execute everything from again to do the prediction. Yes. So let's say your training takes 5 minutes and your prediction takes 1 second. So total time to do the prediction, what it will be? Let's say you give the data. Okay, you put this in a production. Your data is coming. Again, the training is happening. Again, the prediction is happening. So at how much time the prediction will give to you, to the user? Guys, then I will directly move to coding. Okay, if you're not responding anything. Okay, so what I will do is I will directly move to coding now, guys. Okay, so basically the thing here is that we try to save the model. Okay. Now how we do is, everyone please open your Jupyter notebook. No point of explaining because no one is interested, I think. So guys, respond, please respond. Otherwise, I will also not feel any fun of teaching them. If it is not understanding, you can just say, please repeat, please repeat, please repeat. I will repeat it 10,000 times. Yeah, so you can ask that, right? Please repeat the question if you have not understood it. It is for your benefit only, guys. I am going in so much depth because for your own benefit. Okay, it's not for me, it's for you. So you should have taken advantage of this. Okay. So you have done the machine learning projects, right? ML projects. Now in that ML projects, what we do is we have a Jupyter notebook. And in this Jupyter notebook, first what we do is we try to train the model. And then after that, after training the model, you try to predict the model. Okay, now let's say, suppose this Jupyter notebook you open the next day. When you open the Jupyter notebook the next day, on the same data, you again try to train the model and you do the prediction. Yes or no? Yes. So let's say the training of the model takes 5 minutes and the prediction takes 1 second. So if you again execute this Jupyter notebook, so in how much time it will execute for you? 5.1 minutes. So the point what I am saying here is, if you type something on Google and if it gives you the response after 5 minutes, will you use Google from the next time onwards? So the same thing here also. If you are putting your Jupyter notebook entire code into production, if you are putting the Jupyter notebook's entire code into production, then what will happen if some user is doing a prediction? So it will always take 5.1 minutes to give the prediction. Yes or no? Because every time this piece of code is getting executed when you click on submit button. So every time it will take 5.1 minutes to give you the output. Correct? So the end user who is using your product, he will use the product now. He will not use the product, right? Because he cannot wait for 5 minutes. Okay. So the basic idea is why we are training the model again and again. Why we are doing that? It is not required, right? So what I mean by saying that is, let's try to start from basics. So I will scroll down. Okay, let's talk about the linear regression model. Okay, so guys, I am just teaching you the linear regression one more time, just to give a glimpse about it. So let's say you have X and you have Y. Okay, you have X and you have Y. X value is 2, Y value is 4. This is 3, 6, 4, 8, 5. This will be now. What will be the Y value for 5? 10. What is the 6? What will be for 6? It will be 12. Now, have you noticed something? What I am doing is, when I wrote 2 of 4, okay, your brain saw this for the first time, 2 of 4. When I did 3 for 6, when I did 3 for 6, that is 3 into 2, 6. Now your brain started fitting the model that, okay, this person is multiplying 2. When I did 4 of 8, your brain got confirmed that, okay, it is, if I give any value, you have to multiply it by 2 and you will get the value of 5. Yes or no? So the first 3 data you took for a prediction, the first 3 data you took for a training, Then you got, okay, the parameter is multiplied by 2. So now if I give any value, I have to only just multiply it by 2. That is 10 and 12. Correct? So your brain got trained. Your brain got trained. So see, machine learning, right? What happens in linear regression is, what is the formula for linear regression, guys? What is the formula for linear regression? Y is equal to mx plus c. Now in this mx plus c, which one is the independent variable and which one is the variable which keeps on changing depending on the values? So mx plus c, what is m, what is x, and what is c? X in the independent variable, correct? M is slope, but in machine learning, it is called as weight parameters. And Y, C is bias, or you can call it as a weight parameter. Okay, so let's try to see that how this machine learning model works. Okay, how we will get to know the value of these two. So this is what we have to find out using linear regression. So for the first time, for iteration 1, what will happen is y is equal to mx plus c. This value of 2 will come in this location, that is 2. What will be the value of m and c? For the first time, for the iteration, what will be the value of m and c? There should be some starting point, right? What will be the starting point? So guys, just remember this, okay? When you try to train the regression model, this value of m and c is random. Remember this. Value of m and c is random, totally random. Okay. So y is equal to, let's say the random value of m is 0.1 into 2 plus the random value of c is, let's say, 1. So what is the calculation that I get here? So 0.1 into 2 is 0.2 plus 1. So your y is 1.2. This y is nothing but y predicted. So you have a y predicted, and for that particular y, we have an actual value that is 4. So what is the next step that we do? You have the predicted value, you have the actual value. What is the next thing that we try to do? You try to find the error, right? So how to find the error? You just do y minus y hat, the modulus, which is nothing but 2.8. So this is the loss that we have. Now, once you get the loss, what is the next thing that we have to do? What is the job of machine learning model once you get the loss? These are the basic questions which I'm asking, which can be asked to you in an interview also. And this is the first model that I'm teaching you. So you get a loss. What is the job of a machine learning model now? What we have to do this with this loss? No, this loss you have, right? So what you have to do with this loss? You have to increase it or decrease it. What is the job of this machine learning model? So our job is to reduce the loss. We have to bring this loss to zero as much as possible. So we have to minimize the loss. So to minimize the loss, which parameter that you have to play with here now to minimize the loss? Which two parameter you have to change? MNC. Okay, so these two parameters you have to change MNC. But the question is whether I have to increase the value or decrease the value. That's the question, right? Because the changing of MNC can be in two ways. Either you can increase the value or you can decrease the value. Now, increasing the value will help us or decreasing the value will help us. How we will know that? Interview question. Interview question, okay? So whether to decrease this loss, I have to increase or decrease the value of MNC. So how do we decide that? Guys, you have to start revising your topics, okay? If these basic things are not clear, then there's no point of machine learning then. Okay, so there's no point of just completing the course and just going forward. You have to revise the topic. You have to give your 100% here. Okay, because these basic things you guys should know. So there is something called as gradient descent. Okay, so the weight updation formula. Anyone knows? What is the weight updation formula? W old, sorry, weight new is equal to W old minus some learning rate, derivative of loss with respect to derivative of W old. Okay, this is a weight updation formula that we have. And the gradient descent graph, if you remember, it is like this. Okay, and this is the global minima that we have. So your job is somehow your particular weight, whatever your weight here is, somehow it has to reach to the global minima. But the question is whether we have to increase or decrease it, right? So here comes the mathematics. So if your point is here, so slope is positive slope. When the slope is positive, anyone knows what will be the derivative? As a whole, it will be negative or positive? So remember this. When you have a positive slope, the derivative of that particular slope will be always positive. It will be, let it be any value. I'm not talking about the value. I'm talking about the sign. Anand, can we use is not a question. For every algorithm, gradient descent is a method that is used to optimize the weights. It is not. So you have to use gradient descent. So can we use is not a question here. This gradient descent, it's used behind the scene, which you don't know, but it's used behind the scene. Okay. So otherwise, how you will know the weights here, correct? So positive, negative, W old. Okay. This learning rate is some random value, small random value, so that you can fasten the speed of weight optimization. But the overall point is W old minus plus value. So the final value of W old will be increased or decreased. The final value or the new value will be decreasing from W old or increasing from W old. So you have W old minus plus is minus itself, W old minus V. From the old weight, you are subtracting something. So your W old weight will be decreasing. So that's why if your weight is here, it will decrease your weight. So that's how it gets to know whether I have to increase or decrease it. Okay. So now it will go to iteration 2. Iteration 2. Okay. For iteration 2, it will now move to 1. 1 into 2 plus 1. The answer of y hat is 3. Again, you will do the same thing. You will try to calculate the loss. The loss is what? Loss is 1. So you have decreased the loss, right? Then it will go till end of the iteration, and at the end, it will find out that the best value is 2 into x plus 0. After doing a lot of iteration, the best value of m is equal to 0 and c is equal, sorry, m is equal to 2 and c is equal to 0. So now you put any value. If I put 6, you place 6 here. What will be the value of y as a predicted value? If you put a new value 6 and you have a formula 2 into x plus 0. So what will be the output of y? It will be 12, right? So your model also learned that 2 is the important parameter here. So if you take any value and multiply it by 2, the answer will be 12. Now, you again train that model 100 times. You will always, on the same data, if you are training that particular model with the same data, at the end, you will always get that y is equal to 2 into x plus 0. Yes. Same data, same model, you again train it. At the end, you will get only this equation, right? With the same data, with the same model, you run it 100 times. You will get this equation at the end, right? Okay. If you run the model this 100 times, you will always and always get the same formula. Okay. Now, this formula, if you are getting the same formula 100 times, if you execute 100 times or 200 times, then why we need to train the model again and again? Just try to save this particular formula somewhere in the model. Just try to save this formula, right? So we don't need to train this data again and again. Just try to save this model. Just try to save this model and you just move forward. Okay, so next time when you are doing the prediction, you just substitute the value here. So let's say user is giving 100. 100 of x is nothing but 200. That's it. How simple it is, right? And that's what we called as saving of the model. Okay. Now, what we will do is, we will try to take one step further now. One step further in the sense, now we will not using the Jupyter notebook, because in the industry level, we never use Jupyter notebook. We use some kind of IDE, that is integrated development environment. Okay. So the famous one that we're gonna use is something called as VS Code, that is Visual Code Editor. So everyone please download this Visual Code. So Visual Force Editor. Okay, I am giving you the link. Open that link and download for your respective laptop. So for example, it is Mac OS, so download for Mac OS. If it is Windows, download it for Windows. And if it is Linux, download it for Linux. Download it and install it. Okay, once it is done, please let me know. I will move further. Okay. So if everyone has done this, see, unmute for participants. Okay, I will do that. But it's a request that don't ask anything. Okay, in the middle when I'm teaching something. Okay, that's the only request. After that teaching, when I ask you any doubts, you can ask me 100 dollars. There's no problem. But in middle, don't interrupt. Okay, that's the only request. Okay, I will mute all. Okay, good. So once you have done this, okay, so once you have done this, so I will, so you have to open the VS Code. Okay, so people who are in Windows, just search here Visual Studio Code. So this is for Mac. For Windows, in the Windows search, just search for Visual Studio Code and click on that. And once you click on that, this is what will open on your screen. Please repeat the derivative part in the. So what happens is, this is the formula that we have. Okay, W new is equal to W old minus the learning rate derivative of loss with respect to derivative of old. Okay, the weight old. Now let's say your point is somewhere here. So when your point is somewhere here, you have a slope. Derivative is what? Derivative is nothing but the slope, right? So the slope is going from low to high. When the slope is going from low to high, the slope is always positive. So when the slope is always positive, the derivative of this whole equation will be positive. Okay, Atira? So when the derivative is positive, so if you multiplied any small value with a positive value, it will be the whole positive value. Yes. And if it's a whole positive value, if it is a whole positive value, then W old minus of positive is what? Minus of positive is negative only, right? So at the final, your weight will decrease. So your weight will come down. So this is the weight and this is the loss. So weight decreases when it is here. So that's exactly what here is happening here. Okay. So now let's try to understand how this Visual Studio Code works. Now in this Visual Studio Code, on the left hand side, you can see some tools. On the top, you can see some tools. Now left hand side, if you want to open a folder, you can click on open and you can open any folder of your choice. Okay, any folder. For example, I will come to Tutort. Okay, this is a new batch, right? So I will create a new batch, deployment. Okay, once you have created a folder, then just click on open. And once you click on open, that particular folder will get open for you. Again, I will repeat. On the left hand side, when you hover on this, you can see something called as Explorer. Click on that. You will get a button called as open the folder. When you click on open the folder, this particular folder will get open. So how to verify if the folder is open? On the top, you will see something called as your folder name, deployment. See, this is a folder name. So everyone do this. So the beautiful part about this VS Code is that you can control each and everything with this single thing. You don't have to switch to any of your Window Explorer or Mac Explorer, okay? So what I mean by saying that is, if you want to create any file under deployment, you have to click on this plus sign. Okay, click on this plus sign. Once you click on this new file sign, it will ask you to name the file. So what is the extension to name a Python file, guys? .py, correct? So what I will do here is test.py. Okay, once you click on that test.py, you will see that editor will open on the right hand side and a cursor will be blinking here. So let's try to write a basic code. Okay, that is print hello world. Let's try to see if this basic code is getting executed or not. Now, one more important thing. Are you guys able to see this big white dot on the screen, which you can see on my screen also? This big white dot, what you can see, this indicates that your file is not saved. Okay, so you have to save the file. How to save the file? You have to do Control plus S. Control plus S will save the file. Control plus S will save the file for you. Okay. Now, every time saving the file becomes hectic, right? Because sometimes what can happen, your computer can shut down directly or due to some reasons, right? So it is always advisable to always go to File and click on Auto Save. Go to File and click on Auto Save. So what this Auto Save will do is it will try to save the file automatically what you write. So once you have written it, let's try to execute this file. Okay. To execute this file, what you have to do is on the top hand side, you will see something called as terminal. So click on that terminal and click on new terminal. Once you do that, a terminal will open below of your VS Code. At the bottom, a terminal will get open. Okay, so if you want to execute this Python file, so I don't know whether you know this or not, you have to write a command. So Python space followed by the file name that you want to execute. So I want to execute test.py, right? So you have to write here test.py and execute it. And you will see the output in your terminal. So your VS Code, if you can see the output, congrats, your VS Code and everything is working perfectly fine. If you are getting any kind of error, please let me know. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so we will be using this VS Code from the next time onwards to do the all sort of coding so that you guys will understand that what happens or how do we code in the real time. Okay, so what I will do is the saving of the model, I will teach you in the next class. But before that, try to understand the logic. Atira, that notebook, no, now forget about that notebook because that was only and only for the understanding purpose. In the real time, when you go to production level things, no, that notebook never works because we have to work with .py file in the production. And that is the reason. That for initial purpose to understand it is good. But once you move to a company, then you use the IDs. You cannot say that I know Jupyter Notebook and work on Jupyter Notebook. No. So this VS Code or any other IDs like PyCharm or whatever you want to use, you can use it, but not Jupyter Notebook. So that's the reason behind it. so that I can give you the exposure of all the other things also. So that is the reason that I'm not using Jupyter Notebook. Okay. So guys, I will stop the session now. Bye bye everyone. Take care. Enjoy your weekend.